Welcome, folks, to The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. Every week, diving deep into the truth of Catholic social teaching and restoring all things in Christ.
The Uncommon Good is on the air. I'm Bo Bonner.
I'm Dr. Bud Marr.
We are coming to you from these United States of America, here in the middle of the country, Des Moines, Iowa, the convergence of the two rivers, the Des Moines, the Raccoon. Is there anything else converging here, Bud, except our voices?
The State Fair will be converging soon.
That's right.
Whenever the shadows start to lengthen during the summer, I get pretty excited.
It's like a groundhog noticing, smelling all the carbs in the air because the State Fair is coming up. So, yes, this is the Uncommon Good here at Iowa Catholic Radio. We're glad that you're with us. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. We're glad you can take time to listen to us. Welcome to the show. So, Bud and I both work down at Mercy College of Health Sciences. I'm the Senior Advisor for Mission Initiatives and the Director for the Center for Human Flourishing. Bud, what do you do out at the old college?
I'm the Associate Provost there.
And Mercy College of Health Sciences underwrites our show, so we want to say thank you to Mercy College, mchs.edu, all sorts of things you should go check out. I know we're ending the summer term pretty soon here, Bud, but we go all year, so if people are interested in extending that healing ministry of the church, that's what Mercy College was set out to do when the Sisters of Mercy founded the nursing school over 100 years ago. So if you're interested in that, mchs.edu to see how you can get started in the fall, spring, or even summer, depending on when you want to be a part of what we're up to.
Well, in July, my wife and I welcomed a new child into the world, and whenever you go through that experience, you're grateful for skilled healthcare specialists. So I was feeling honored to be at Mercy College of Health Sciences, where we're able to train a whole host of professional healthcare specialists.
One of these buttons does hand applause. Ooh. Oh, it's not working. One of these buttons does hand applause, and if I figured it out, I would have said that. But congratulations to the Marrs. Do you want to say who it is that has joined the Marr clan?
Well, his name's Leo Gregory, so he's been a good addition. I've always wondered what those buttons were for. I thought when you pressed that purple one, that would send me to like a crocodile lair.
No, it's
that's peaceful.
It's peaceful. Yeah, don't worry, Jimmy. We're not going to mess with it. Well, we're only hitting 2 buttons per day, so don't worry about that one. But one of these does clap, and so all of us join congratulating the new Marr child, Leo. Strong name. He's going to need it because it's him with 7 other people, probably all loving on him already. But do you think he's... do you think he's going to have factions that he's going to join within the Marr clan?
Well, Rachel was telling me the other day that he's like our chillest baby, and I was like, well, yeah, maybe, but he's also never put down. There's one sister carrying him pretty much every moment of the day. So he's, the test results might be skewed a little bit.
Yeah, neither of the boys have volunteered, or have they not been allowed to volunteer to carry the baby?
They try to rope him into the basketball games and things. I'm like, no, he's not ready for that.
Yeah, he needs a little bit more practice before you throw him down on that one. Well, congratulations to Rachel, and hope everybody's getting attuned over there at the full Marr household, ready to go. Yeah, Bud, like you pointed out, we're in August now, so that means summer is quickly vanishing, but we all have our big shindigs like the fair coming up before we say adieu, forever to summer 2022. I guess that means you're going to have enough time to... You're probably going to be given fair duty, right, to send the Marr children out while Rachel rests with the little one?
Well, if you are a fair person, please do stop by and see the Iowa Catholic Radio booth. The station always has a great presence there, so we love to meet some of our listeners in person. It's usually by, I think, the Callahan stage or something.
No, the Bill O'Reilly. Isn't that right?
I think you're right, because I always think the old Fox News commentator.
I think that's right. I think Jimmy's staring at us. So anyway, the point is like the fair in the middle. You'll hear people giving witty comments and spreading the gospel, and you'll know that it's part of us. So make sure to come be a part of what we're up to at the Iowa State Fair. And you want to find out what else we're doing, iowacatholicradio.com, the Iowa Catholic Radio app, all of our social media like on Facebook and Twitter, all sorts of ways that you can check in on us and be a part of what we're doing in and around the diocese. This is The Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. Stick around. This is The Uncommon Good, and we'll be back right after this.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by CTO. What great news for donors to the Catholic Tuition Organization. You now receive 75% of your donation back in Iowa tax credits. Your support has helped thousands of students attend our Catholic schools. Best gift ever. Online, ctoiowa.org. At CTO, the bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Five Sons Naturescapes. Five Sons Naturescapes is a Catholic veteran-owned family company providing premium outdoor landscaping. Learn more about Five Sons Naturescapes at fivesonsnaturescapes.com. fivesonsnaturescapes.com.
St. Vincent de Paul helps so many people.
You're right, Zoe. St. Vincent de Paul Executive Director Steve Havman here. We are serving over 32,000 local residents with food, clothing, furniture, and financial assistance annually. We invite you to learn more about all of our life-changing programs that positively impact so many Iowans by simply Googling St. Vincent de Paul of Des Moines. Our mission is to help those in need become self-sufficient through education, community connectedness, and unconditional support. Help us, help others.
Even kids!
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Catholic Charities, where exceptional service is a hallmark in caring for those with essential needs, including food pantry, professional counseling, emergency family shelter, and refugee services. CatholicCharitiesDM.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Confluence Brewing Company, brewed locally since 2012 and featuring regular, seasonal, and limited release beers. Confluence Brewing Company, 1235 Thomas Beck Road off the bike trail south of Grays Lake. ConfluenceBrewing.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory. Caldwell Parish offers services that are unique to the individual while following the Catholic funeral rites. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory, Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home.
We're back with The Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the show. Just to get something clear real quick, Bud and I earlier were saying the stage incorrectly at the Iowa State Fair. It's the Ann and Bill Riley. There's no O. Ann and Bill Riley stage in the middle of the fair, and that's where Iowa Catholic Radio gets to set up. So we hope to see you there. And Jimmy, we're eternally sorry for messing up the flawless show that we. I mean, this is the first mistake I think we've ever made on air, right, Bud?
I think the mistake is due to me because when I hear Bill Riley, I do think of Bill O'Reilly. And so when I was trying to remember the name, I was like, I knew it was a Bill, and a Bill who was associated with someone famous, but I connected it with an ex-Husker. Head football coach.
I think that makes sense. I'm not too worried about it. Well, today we're going to talk about someone who, I'll be honest, I simply cannot forget his name because he's so important to me. We're going to talk about Father Stanley, Blessed Father Stanley Rother from Oklahoma, America's, I think, first American-born martyr. Certainly very proud that as an Okie, he's one of the first beatified, one of the first that we get to praise here in the United States. So December 1st, 2016, he was officially, Pope Francis declared him killed in odium fide, so in hatred of the faith, which would allow him to be beatified. So Rother was beatified September 23rd, 2017. And, right now down in Oklahoma City, I think they're opening this year, if not the whole thing, the Stanley Rother Shrine. They just was just reading the article about how they have 3 specific priests have been assigned there. It's going to be this glorious shrine that hopefully, I'm, of course, advertising about Oklahoma because I go down there all the time because of my family. Probably an 8 or so hour drive to go see, like I said, a martyr born here in America's heartland. We are, of course, talking about the saints because this is our, we've been talking about sacrificial leadership, and so we're talking about the saints as exemplars of that. And Blessed Father Stanley Rother, harder to imagine someone who has poured himself out for the sake of Jesus and the people Jesus loved, the poor for whom Christ has a preferential preference for in love, right? That he's the man, the suffering servant for the sake of the poor. And Father Rother embodied that with his very life and death. So that's who we're going to talk about today. Bud, I could talk about him endlessly, so I'm going to throw it over to you first. What strikes you about Father Rother's story and about why we think he's an exemplar for sacrificial leadership?
Well, I appreciate the fact that you start by mentioning him being an American-born saint. I think for myself, Bo, sometimes when I read about the lives of the saints, they can seem so far removed from our daily experience. And you read about someone like St. Francis of Assisi with the stigmata, or, these accounts of Padre Pio bilocating and appearing to people and giving them, these prophetic words and things like that. And it's like, man, I don't know. Like, I want to be a saint. Can I live up to the example that St. Francis, Padre Pio, St. Theresa of Avila that they set? With Stanley Rother, like you're saying, born here in the United States, born and raised in Oklahoma, we could take a trip, to see the land that he walked today. And even as he started to discern his vocation and move towards the priesthood, it wasn't always smooth sailing. So he struggled some with the requirements, like the academic requirements of seminary, but really felt, called by God to do this work, and so persevered, ended up eventually studying at Mount St. Mary's in Maryland. But I think for me, when I read about Blessed Stanley Rother's life, the fact that he's an American, that he didn't live so long ago, it's like we shouldn't think about sainthood as sort of like this special preserve for the select few. All of the baptized are called to this life of holiness and to cooperate with the grace given to us.
Yep, he's a farm boy down from Okarche, Oklahoma. So, of course, Oklahoma settled by all sorts of different ethnic groups throughout the United States after the land run, things like this. So Okarche has quite a few German Catholics, so he's from a very strong German Catholic family, grew up a farm boy, farmed all the time. Even when he was a missionary down in Guatemala, when he would come back in very sort of oaky fashion, he'd come back and for vacation, he'd help his dad harvest the grain. So, when you're out there on your real vacation, remember that Father Rother was like, it'll be fun not sweating here down in Guatemala, but sweating in Oklahoma to help bring in the harvest. But very, very pious, hardworking, like you said, just salt of the earth family. Of course, he's a priest. He has a sister who was a sister, an adorer of the precious blood of Jesus. He had a second cousin, and I believe that's one of the priests who was going to be over the shrine, who also became a priest. So just one of these deeply rooted families in the Catholic faith. And like you said, you read his life. There's a wonderful book called The Shepherd Who Would Not Run, that is about his entire life, his biography. And, he really was just growing up, and people thought he was going to be like a farm kid who got married and run the family farm. And he was just normal. And people talk about how wonderful he is, an effervescent smile. He was evidently hilarious and sort of a prankster. And I believe it was his uncle who was a priest. And it was one of those vocation stories where it starts to sound, like you say, very modern to us. It's not necessarily that, it was something like you said, St. Francis, who is marvelous as he is, and by the way, Father Rother was known in Guatemala as Father Oplas, or Padre Oplas, which is Francis. That was his other name. So to me, it's always makes sense to bring up St. Francis. But yeah, so, he had the call, it grew on him, and then he decided to go to seminary. And as you said, a lot of people were really sort of worried about it. It wasn't that he was a bad student, but he did well. But no one thought of him as studious. And like always, right, Texas is always trying to make things problematic for Okies. No, I'm joking. He goes down to a seminary down in San Antonio, I believe, and he's just has the hardest time with Latin. Really didn't do that great of a job, and so he sort of took a little bit of a break and was really wondering if they were going to let him keep going. In fact, what people remember him down from Texas is that to kind of ease his mind, because the studies, especially with Latin, would get hard for him, he would do things like take care of the grounds. He would, plant trees. He would do stuff like that. And so people were like, don't you see, he wants to be back on the land. But the bishop at the time really felt, no, he has a call. And so, like you said, ended up at Mount St. Mary's, where he passed and was ordained to become a priest. But even then, right, a lot of running around the diocese, what he was mostly doing was there's a retreat center down in Oklahoma. They were given land, the diocese was. And so a lot of what his job was to form the land, build places for people to go on retreat. So he would do masses, but it wasn't like he was the sort of typical parish priest. So when it came time to call priests to go be missionaries down in Guatemala, again, people aren't thinking necessarily of, the guy who says masses on the weekend and then, is working to shore up land, so that there can be a retreat center. But the bishop again said, well, this is a perfect person to send down to Guatemala. He can maybe help them farm. He can help them build things and also be their priest. And that's part and parcel of what made him such a good father to the people down in Guatemala, was that he really did join them in all of their struggles in that way.
Yeah, and when he's serving down there, the really heroic part of his life is that he starts to experience resistance on the ground there with some of the work that he's doing, to the point where he starts to receive counsel from different people that he should maybe leave because he's under threat. I think, Bo, in reading about Blessed Stanley Rother's life, what really stood out to me is his perseverance in the face of certain challenges. Of the group that was originally sent down, I think 5 or 6 of them ended up going back to the States, not out of fear necessarily, but just because they ended up in other ministries and things. He really became, a part of the people with learning the language and being fully immersed in their culture there. And then when things did become dangerous, and he's back in the United States, I think in like the early 80s, 1981 or so, and some are saying like, should you really go back? And Blessed Rother's, he said he had been told a story of a group of sisters who had been involved in certain sort of like missionary work, and they ended up taking like a reprieve. And then when they came back to be back in that original context, some of the people said to them, "Where were you when we needed you?" And so for Stanley Rother, like, I think one of the things that he really demonstrates for us and displayed for us is when God calls us to something, sticking it out in the face of difficulty. Because I think in our world today, we, more than any other point in human history, we have this real sense like I'm in control of the details of my life. So if I don't like my job or I don't like the city that I live in, I'll just find like a different thing to do. And we feel like we have this enormous choice. We probably like overstate maybe how much choice we actually have in the matter. But there's something to be said about like really staying rooted amidst the difficulties and the kind of fruit that God can bring about through our perseverance.
Yeah, and he loved Oklahoma. He loved his family, but he became a father to the Zutuhil people at Santiago Atitlan. And
I'm glad you said that first, the name of the people.
Yeah, when they needed him, he went back, and even though it ended up that he died precisely because of that, we have the rest of his body in Oklahoma City, but his heart remains back there at Santiago Atitlan because that's where his heart was. And that sort of transformation, like you said, is what, if we're going to be sacrificial leaders, what we have to be willing to do. This is The Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner, Dr. Bud Marr. Stick around. We'll get back talking more about Blessed Father Stanley Rother right after this.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Knights of Columbus, Borman, and Pfeiffer agencies, serving Catholic families in Iowa, offering life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, and retirement annuities. The Knights of Columbus is a fraternal benefit society able to provide financial security to members and their families. Learn how Knights of Columbus agent Justin Waddle can help. 563-689-6801, 563-689-6801, or kfc.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Bozen the Florist. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, weddings, whatever the message, say more with Bozen. Bozen.com, 515-244-ROSE. Bozen makes the moment mean more.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
They provide unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules, all part of the Mercy College experience.
Learn more at mchs.edu.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Ashworth Vision Clinic. Complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. 515-440-4610. AshworthVision.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a full-service residential and commercial roofing contractor in the Des Moines area since 1988. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Thank you, Bell Construction, for supporting Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by InterVisions Healthcare, empowering men and women to make the most informed, life-affirming decisions for themselves and their families. Learn more at ivhcare.org, ivhcare.org. Thank you, InterVisions Healthcare, for supporting Iowa Catholic Radio.
Back to the Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the show. We're talking about someone who's very special to me as an example of a saint who poured himself out for others. That's right, the Okie martyr, Blessed Father Stanley Rother, who went and died on behalf of the Zutujil people in Santiago Atitlan down in Guatemala. But, you know, one of the things I think is interesting is you were pointing about, like, our life isn't our own, and he was willing to go die for his people. That's why he's a martyr. There's also this idea that when we make that leap of faith to pour ourselves out, that God will fulfill what's lacking of our own natural capacities. We talked about earlier that Father Stanley almost didn't make it through seminary because he'd had a hard time with the Latin language, and yet after everything else, after they sent him down with a cadre of intellectuals, it ends up being him who just takes to the Zutujil language, the indigenous language of the people that hardly any other Americans really stuck with. And he was the one who was actually translating the New Testament into Zutujil. He was even preaching at times in Zutujil. And so, you know, I don't know what else to say except that supernaturally, God provided this humble man who was mostly known early in his days as a priest as someone who was handy and, you know, could build things, and that's why he'd be a nice addition to this mission. And in the end, he was the only one left there to be with the people when they were suffering the oppression from the Guatemalan authorities, but learned their language, became one of them. And like I said, physically, when I said his heart was there, physically, his physical heart is buried with the people of Santiago Atitlan and the rest of his body back in Oklahoma City, because he allowed God to supply over and above what by nature were his many gifts.
I love, like, the whole relic thing. We've talked about this on the show before, but, like, when we were in Rome, there was a church there where they had St. Francis Xavier's hand. And I was like, wow, that's intense. Like, you know, why just the hand?
Right.
And it's like, well, he had served in India, and when he died, you know, like, they wanted the relics back in Rome, but the people were so attached to Francis Xavier, they're like, no, we'll give you the hand. But, yeah, just learning more about Blessed Stanley Rother's life, it reminds me a lot of the lives in the Old Testament, where, like, God says to Abraham, like, go to the land that I will show you. And God doesn't tell Abraham the rest of the story, like what's going to take place. Or to Moses, like, go tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And Stanley Rother, like those individuals, he had this kind of, like, trust in God to say, like, I'm going to take the next step despite the naysayers around me. And as with Moses, I think God provided the gifts that he needed when he answered that call. You know, Moses he's concerned because he's like, well, I stutter. And God's like, when you're there, I'll give you the words. And I think we see that with Stanley Rother's life.
As you can tell, I mean, I hope people find out more about him. The book that I would throw out if anyone wants to, it's a great read. Actually, it's a great audio book as well. I know I'm a big audio book guy now, an apologist, but it's called The Shepherd Who Didn't Run, Father Stanley Rother, Martyr from Oklahoma, by Maria Ruiz Scaperlanda, and I always mess up her name, so Maria, forgive me if I butchered that again.
Iowa Catholic Radio should they should sponsor a pilgrimage to Oklahoma.
Yes, I mean just because it's Oklahoma, but additionally, no kidding. Yes, I would love if we can make that work. I would love to lead that pilgrimage down to the shrine. So if you're ever in Oklahoma City, I would ask you to think about that. But more than anything, Blessed Rother, like I said, a person, he died the year I was born, 1981, right? So that's how close to us he is. He truly is an American saint for the American people and for the people of Guatemala. I think there's very few people that in our time and in our nexuses of concerns, he really is someone who would be a powerful person to ask to intervene for us. So Blessed Rother, pray for us. This is the Uncommon Good. May Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, reign in our hearts, family, city, state, nation, solar system, galaxy, the whole kit and caboodle. This is the Uncommon Good, and we'll be back next week. But if folks want to be a part of the prayer life here at Iowa Catholic Radio, what are some ways that they can do so?
Well, whenever we talk about a blessed on the show, it's always, to me, kind of a challenge, like, let's all get behind the cause of Blessed Stanley Rother and ask him for his intercession on the path to sainthood. But also do join us in praying the rosary. It's broadcast on air at 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. The Divine Mercy Chaplet is at 2:55 in the afternoon, and you can use the Iowa Catholic Radio app to pray the rosary anytime, anywhere.
And as you pointed out, we've been pointing out, right, Iowa Catholic Radio is going to be down at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, so that's August 11th through 21st, and the west side of the Ann and Bill Riley stage. So we said it correctly. On August 11th, we also Skillet with special guest Dante Bowe. So that's the Iowa State Fair Grandstand. That's at 8 p.m. on August 11th. On August 17th on the Iowa State Fair Grandstand, again, comedian John Christ and friends with special guest Dusty Slay. This is all sponsored Iowa Catholic Radio content. August 21st at the Iowa State Ann and Bill Riley stage at 8 p.m. again. Ann Wilson, and one more time, something that we, as the group, as the sponsors. Also, August 25th at the Jasper Winery, the Heartland for Kids presents a benefit concert for Mary's Meals. All sorts of other stuff, like September 9th, we have Man Up West Power Lunch out at St. Francis of Assisi. That's at noon. Other things as well. Go to iowacatholicradio.com to catch up more. But also remember us in your prayers. You can donate to us at iowacatholicradio.com and the Iowa Catholic Radio app. Bud, we got to close it up there. Like you said, Blessed Rother, pray for us if you think about needing an intercessor. I can't throw out a better person than him. This is The Uncommon Good, and we'll be back next week.
The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr is heard every week on wonderful Catholic stations like this one, and anytime on podcast. Just search for The Uncommon Good.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and The Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences. Learn more at mchs.edu.